Rachel. Howdy, Rachel. How you doing?
Hi, I'm wonderful. How are you, Dan?
Doing great, thanks.
And you're a father now.
Yes, did you
You're a
just hear me say
dad.
that?
I did, but I think I had seen Craig post about it, Craig Curlup.
Oh yeah. Um,
So,
yeah, our baby boy, Callum, is 4 weeks old today.
oh, congratulations.
4 week birthday, thanks.
Yay.
He is the best. He is so awesome.
That's amazing.
We're best buddies. Except when he poops on me, which he's done twice. He pees on
Love
me
that
all
for
the
you.
time. I don't mind that, but you take the good with the bad, I guess. Yeah, so Rachel, we haven't actually met before. Just some emails and stuff. Thank you, by the way, for taking the time to join us today. We are recording the meeting. We're going to post it in our group afterwards for those who couldn't be here. And I know that you only got 45 minutes and you have to get out of here at 6. I have another meeting after this too. So we'll be done right at 6.
Cool.
And yeah, we both, Craig's a good friend of yours, right?
Yeah.
And mine as well. And if I remember right, didn't you used to live in Colorado Springs, or maybe you still do?
Yes. I lived in Kentucky for most of my life. And then last year, my husband and I moved to Colorado Springs. And we left a month ago and we're traveling for the rest of the year all around the US. So I'm in Boise, Idaho right now.
Okay. Um, I spent some good time in Boise, or I should say Idaho. I lived in Sun Valley for a short stint. Um,
Nice.
awesome. So what I'd like to do, Rachel, is I was looking at somewhere there was a Jessica is on our call. What I'd like to do, Rachel, is when we have a guest on, we normally give you, say, 5-10 minutes, whatever you want to kind of tell your story. Some of these people know a lot about you because I posted a bunch of links when I announced that you would be our guest, but not everybody does. So take 5 or 10 minutes, kind of tell your story, and then also tell us what you're up to now, other than traveling around the country, with your business and your books and your community, and your passive income and all that stuff. And
Okay.
then we kind of just open it up to Q&A for the rest of our time, which I think is the best use, because the members, they get to learn what they really want to know from you. That could be specific, or it could be general, it could be just advice. So that's what tends to work best. Does that sound good?
Yes, perfect. I love it. Thank you so much for having me again. And hello to everybody. It's nice to see all your faces. Hi. All right. I'll start by sharing about my story. And I'm a casual, informal person. If you guys have questions, you can raise your hand or interrupt me or whatever. This can be more like a dialogue, but I'll just start by telling you a little bit about myself. Just at a high level of where I am today, I was able to retire at the age of 27, which was 2 years ago. And I'm now making over 15 grand a month in passive income. I had built a real estate portfolio of 38 doors by the age of 26. And I have 2 best-selling books. Money Honey has over 1,000 reviews on Amazon. And my second book is Passive Income, Aggressive Retirement. And I'm a former financial advisor. So that's like my bio. So let's just rewind and we'll go back to high school. I grew up in a really wealthy county, very unrealistic bubble to grow up in. So by no means was my family like poor or living in poverty, but I had a very skewed perception of what wealth looked like. So compared to all of my peers in high school, many of whom received brand new BMWs when they turned 16, I felt like my family was poor, basically, even though we weren't, because I had no idea. We were always on a budget. We were not even going out to eat at restaurants, let alone driving new cars or going on family trips. So I felt like I didn't fit in, and that's not the way you want to feel in middle school and in high school. I realized at some point in high school that I did not want to end up like everyone else struggling with money. I wanted to be different. I didn't want to have to operate on a strict budget for the rest of my life, or have to borrow money from family and friends to make it to my next paycheck. I stumbled upon the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad. How many of you have read Rich Dad, Poor Dad? Okay, I see a lot of head nods. Perfect. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. This is how I'm going to achieve financial independence. It was the first time I had learned about real estate investing and how it worked. So I knew by age 18 that I was interested in doing that. I went into college and I graduated from high school. I was very scared about college because I knew that my parents couldn't afford to help me pay for it whatsoever. And I was really terrified about taking out student loans because I'd seen how it can just kind of cripple somebody's financial future and make it really, really hard to get ahead. And some people's student loan payments are like $800 or $1,000 a month, and it's crazy. So I was a little bit scared. So I took this job selling Cutco knives. So have any of you heard of Cutco knives? Okay, cool. So I sold Cutco and I paid my way through school, and I graduated at the age of 20, completely debt-free, which is to this day still one of my proudest accomplishments. After that, and I majored in financial economics. So after that, I was looking at a career path, and I figured I could become a financial advisor because it was a good combination of the sales background, which I had, and also teaching people about finance and helping them invest, which is what I was really, really passionate about. So I started doing that, but I quickly realized that cold calling people 8 hours a day, 5 days a week is not my idea of fun. I'm an introvert. I mean, some people can do that really well and they're good at it, but I'm more of an introvert, and it was very draining for me. So I left that job, but I always was thinking, I still want to help people with this, with finance and investing and money management. So I had to come up with a different way to do that. And I did a couple of years later when I first had the idea to write Money Honey. So basically by that time, all of my family and friends were coming to me for financial advice, which was great because that's what I love to help people with. At the same time, I began to wonder, well, why aren't they reading books or learning on their own? And then I realized, oh yeah, that's because personal finance is boring for most people, right? It's overwhelming, it's intimidating, it's complex. No wonder people don't like to learn about it. So I thought to myself, well, how can I make this topic sassy and fun and simple? And that's where the idea for Money Honey came from. I started writing it. It was very much a passion project. It wasn't even like I had no idea what this would later become for me and turn into this huge business. It was just something I felt compelled to do. And I remember thinking to myself, because going through with publishing, it was so scary. It's just a vulnerable thing. I remember thinking to myself, if I can just help one person, that is all I want to do. And I think that's part of the reason it did well, because people, if I had been out for a quick money grab, I think people would have seen right through that. But I wasn't. I was just passionate about it. I genuinely wanted to help people. To my surprise and shock, Money Honey took off. It was immediately selling a ton of copies. It really resonated with female millennials in particular, because that's who I wrote it for. And it just did really, really well. Also that year, that was 2017. Also that year, my husband and I started investing in rental properties. So we purchased our first duplex in January of 2017. It is still to this day one of the best investments that I've ever purchased, and we still own it. And by the end of 2017, we kind of looked back and we realized, hey, we have two passive income streams now. We have rental income and we have royalty income. So we focused on growing those as much as we possibly could over the next few years. And basically fast forward to today, now we've built this out to be a big rental portfolio. I have my 2 best-selling books, online courses, Mastermind. My Money Honey business at this point is making more than what we make in rental income, which I never would have imagined would be possible. But that's what I do now. We're traveling, but I'm still working on growing my business. I'm not so much motivated by money anymore, even though I used to like hustle for it really, really hard. But now it's just, I'm at a place where I'm financially independent, so I can work when, where, and if I want. And my business of helping young women and Gen Zers and millennials with money, like that is what brings me so much fulfillment. So I just want to do more of that and make as much of an impact as I can. So that's just a 5-minute overview of my story. What questions do you guys have about that or about anything else? I'm happy to talk about anything on this call, self-publishing, rental property, money management, whatever you guys want to hear about. So what you got for me?
I'll jump in real quick, Rachel. Can you tell us, before we get into the questions, can you tell us a little bit more about when you say Money Honey business, what does that entail for you?
So I have several things now. I have my 2 best-selling books, and I now have an online course called Get Your Financial Shit Together. So it's a sassy, like 8-week online course. And I just launched my rental property bootcamp where I'm going to be teaching people how to find and analyze off-market properties. So that's my newest one. And then I also have a mastermind called Women on Fire. So for financial independence, retire early. And that's where I work with a really small group of women who want to create passive income streams.
Okay. And then I'm going to sneak in a question here before we turn it over to the members. With publishing, I guess you did self-publish the Money Honey book.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But it took off and it had a lot of success. Normally self-published books are really difficult, at least from what I understand, to have a lot of success. So was that just kind of, did you actively promote the book? Or did you do a book tour, or do you feel like it just kind of word of mouth took off and was successful?
Yeah, I definitely promoted it a lot. So here's the deal with publishing. And Dan, you're publishing yours through Bigger Pockets Publishing, right?
Yes. Yeah.
That's amazing. If I would like totally do that. I think that's a really smart thing to do. So if you look at just a traditional publishing company versus self-publishing, I used to be enamored with the idea of a traditional book deal because I thought, I don't want to do the marketing, like that part sucks. I want to write the book and I wanted to give it to somebody who can sell it. And I thought that's what a traditional book deal was. Once I started asking other authors and researching, I realized that wasn't the case. And when you traditionally publish, they still expect you to do 99% of the marketing and publish and promoting. So then I was like, well, if I'm going to be doing the marketing anyways, I might as well self-publish and make a lot more money. Because when you traditionally publish, you're going to get a 10 to 15% royalty. When you self-publish, you can get a 35 to 70% royalty with Amazon. So that was my thinking at the time. There was definitely a lot that went into it. Months and months of engaging on Facebook groups and adding value and getting my name out there and just becoming a trusted, incredible resource for female millennials, basically on the internet, wherever I could. And by the time I launched my book, I didn't really have a following. I mean, no one knew me back in 2017. I didn't have a following. So this was just like trying to get my name out there with my friends and family and people that they knew. But it worked really well. And by the time I published, I did have a lot of people who were excited to read my book because I had been on the internet giving free advice in a really simple and clear to understand way. And they appreciated that. So, but yes, Dan, to answer your question, I did a ton of marketing and promotion on my own.
Okay. And then I think you may remember this, but maybe you don't. And you did a case study for me.
Yes.
Months ago.
Yeah.
And I got several of those, and only a few, I think 5 or 6 made it into my book in the final version, but yours is one of them. You're going to be highlighted in the book when it comes out in November. And so
Thank you.
Thank you for doing that.
Yes, thank you. I really appreciate that.
Sharing your story. So
Yeah.
it all works out. And I remember somewhere in Instagram, there's a picture of you, Craig, and
Caleb
Williams.
Yes, he's a good friend. Mm-hmm.
I guess we're all Colorado people, and you're all holding. Well, I think you're holding someone like.
We're all holding each other's books.
Yeah, and what a great! I loved that post because I didn't know you at the time, but I knew those two guys pretty well.
Yeah,
I know you. So Sunday,
and I think we're all going to FinCon. By the way,
I will be there too.
You guys come to FinCon and hang out.
My book won't be released by then, but it'll be in print.
Sweet.
So I want a picture with the 4 of us in our book.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
All right, so here's what we're going to do, Rachel. Thanks for all the info and intro and details. The members know what's up. So they've already started putting their questions in the chat. This is how
I can just go through them.
Yeah. And so if you wouldn't mind, start at the top,
okay.
Read the question and then just answer it as best you can. And just go on down the list. If you need to take a break, let us know, but that works pretty good.
Okay. Sounds good. So yeah, drop your questions in the chat. And I'll get through them. So Leo said, how long did your books take you to write? I wrote Money Honey, like from start to publish date. It took me 9 months, but keep in mind, I was also spending a lot of my weekends, like looking for rental properties, and I was working a full-time job. And there was actually a 4-month period where I totally quit writing the book because I was convinced I was a phony and my writing sucked, and who was I to write a book? So I've heard people have success doing like literally a 90-day timeline to write a book. I personally think that's pretty aggressive, but I think a reasonable timeline is 6 months. Some people do 12 months too, but that's how long it took me, was 9. Taylor said tips for scaling properties fast. Yes, I definitely have tips. I scaled from 0 to 38 doors in 2 years. A lot of people assume that I'm a trust fund baby or that I was making like a ton of money at the time. So I always like to tell people I'm not a trust fund baby, and I never made 6 figures from a job or career ever. I was making $36,000 after I graduated from college. But I was finding a way to save 50% of my income back then. So I was living off something like $1,500 a month. So that's one advantage I had going for me, is that I didn't have student loans, and I was also being extremely frugal with where my money was going so that I could save aggressively. So by the time my husband and I started investing in 2017, another thing we had going for us is that we invested in Louisville, Kentucky, which is a pretty low cost of living city. So our first duplex was $100,000. Where do most of you guys live, by the way? Or is everybody all over the place? All over?
They're all
Okay.
over the school. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I was just speaking to like a California real estate group the other day, and I was like, invest out of state. You have to be open to investing out of state for sure if you live in a high cost of living area. It was an advantage for us that we lived in Kentucky at the time. So by the time 2017 came around, we'd each save 10 grand on our own. We pulled that together to get to our $20,000 down payment. So here's the thing though, I had my realtor's license at the time, and it wasn't for the purpose of having clients. It was just for my own purposes of being an investor and buying properties. So we would completely deplete our savings to buy a property, but then I would be representing myself as a buyer's agent, and I would immediately get a commission check back for thousands of dollars. And that is the key to how I was able to scale so quickly. Some of the properties we bought, I would get a 10 grand commission check, and I would put that towards the down payment for the next property. So we were already being frugal. I was getting the commission checks, and we were saving 100% of the profits or the cash flows from our property. We weren't doing like lifestyle creep or deciding, oh, we get to live it up now. We were really strict and diligent. So that's what I would say, Taylor, for how we scaled so quickly. And great question. Thank you. Ben said, what are some things you do to invest in yourself? Okay, this is a good question because there's 2 extremes in the finance world. There's one extreme where you can like spend too much money, and that's what most people do. They overspend and they live above their means. But there is another extreme where you can actually be too frugal, and I have done this at times. I have made decisions where I was being so cheap that it ended up costing me more in the long run. And I have a excellent horror story that you can listen to on the Bigger Pockets podcast episode I did of my property managers that stole $6,000 from me because I was cheap and I hired cheap people instead of a reputable property management company. So I have all sorts of stories like that. So Ben, one thing I've learned to do to invest in myself is I've just had to learn that it's okay to invest in myself in the first place. So for so long, I struggled to figure things out on my own and just try to use free resources. And it ended up taking me a lot longer to learn how to do things like write a book and successfully invest in real estate. Whereas if I had invested the money into like a course or a mentor or a coach, I could have gotten there a lot faster and without some of the very costly mistakes that I ended up making. So I'm still not good at this. This is still a mindset shift for me, but I've learned that when I always want to have a coach now or a mastermind that I'm in because I want to learn from people that are already 5 steps ahead of me and have already done all the things that I want to do. So that's what I would say for investing in myself. And then Joyce said, were you living in one of the units of your first rental or were you living at home at the time still? Did you have to take out any loans? So I never did house hacking where I was living in the properties that I wanted to be my investment properties. Part of that is because my husband, Andrew, is a veteran. So we had our primary residence with his VA loan where we could put 0% down. So that was a huge benefit. And that meant we could save our money to invest into rental properties. Although if we didn't have that, I totally would have house hacked. I would have bought like a triplex. We would have lived in one of the units. We would have rented out the other 2. And I was not living at home with my parents, but I was living in my house with my husband. And we have loans on all of our rental properties. I did this video on TikTok the other day. Are you guys on TikTok? I'm obsessed with TikTok. And so I do videos on TikTok, and I did one where it was like, oh, I have over $1 million of debt, and I have it on purpose. Like, I want to be over $1 million in debt, and here's why. And I was like, this is all the debt on my rental properties. I don't carry any other kind of debt except for the mortgages on my rentals. And I got a lot of hate for it because people just don't understand the power of leverage and how to leverage safely, because there is such a thing as being over leveraged. So I have loans on all of my rentals. We put 20 to 25%, excuse me, I might need to go find my water. We put 20 to 25% down on all of our rentals. So I felt that was safe and that we were not going to be over leveraged or underwater on our mortgage in any scenario. And at this point, years later, we have up to 50% equity on some of them just because of how much they've appreciated. So yes, loans on all of them. Ben said, is Cutco still a good gig for young people in regards to sales experience and income opportunity? Would you recommend it to a current college student? Yes, I absolutely would. A lot of people think Cutco is an MLM, and it is not. I don't like MLMs. No offense if anyone is in an MLM. I don't like them. But I do like direct sales companies. And I think that you can gain a lot of valuable experience in a direct sales company where you're learning skills like how to face rejection, how to present, how to have public speaking skills, and how to basically pitch a client or a customer. So one of the most valuable experiences I've ever had. And I literally can't even say anything bad about it. It was so good. I learned so much that set me apart from my peers in college. It's so hard when you're a college student and you're competing with everybody else because everybody has a strong resume. Everybody has the clubs that they're in and their extracurriculars, but not a lot of people are successful salespeople at such a young age. So when I graduated from college and all of my friends were struggling to find jobs, I had 5 job offers. And I guarantee it's because it was of my Cutco experience. So yes, highly recommend. And thank you for asking. I'm happy to make connections for you if you're interested in that. Okay, how were you able to scale rent by the bedroom? What system and procedures did you use to ensure harmony in the house and track maintenance and cut erroneous expenses? Very smart question. So if you all had listened to my Bigger Pockets podcast, you heard that some of my rentals are boarding homes is basically the word for them, where they're big buildings and we rent them out by the room. So for example, we have one building that's like a really, really large duplex. There's 5 bedrooms in one unit and 6 bedrooms in another unit. Each unit has a kitchen and 2 full bathrooms and laundry. And so the tenants share common areas and we rent out the bedrooms privately. I haven't talked about this much just because it's so unique. I don't really know why, but when you rent out by the room, and this is what Craig Curlop does too, who wrote the house hacking strategy. When you rent out by the bedroom, you can turn like a good property or a decent property or an okay property into a total cash cow. Like the amount of money we make from these is absolutely crazy. Just to give you some perspective, one of these we bought for $375,000, and it was bringing in like $85,000 per year in rent revenue. So our cash on cash return for that property was something like 35%. Which is unheard of. So I highly recommend them. You do need to make sure that you have all the permits that are required because different cities have different requirements. You need to make sure that it's zoned the correct way if that's a requirement in the city that you're living in. And just make sure all of your bases are covered there with like having fire extinguishers in the right places. Because when you have that many people in a building, there's stricter requirements basically. In terms of ensuring harmony in the house, we never had any like crazy dramatic situations. We would just have like people would just get on each other's nerves at times, or they'd be like, oh, this guy stole my food in the fridge, or this guy was doing laundry at night. So it wasn't ever anything major. And normally if we just sent out like a written warning to everybody, that kind of stopped the problem. And then track maintenance, who broke it? Yeah. So it's a little bit hard to know who might have broken something, especially if it's like in a common area. We've just basically had a much larger maintenance budget, and we just assume like if something breaks, then we as owners are going to take care of it if it's in the common area, unless we have proof. We do have security cameras in the common areas of the properties, like not the bathrooms, but in the kitchens and in the lobbies and in the hallways, so we can see some stuff. We just can't see everything. Okay, Abigail said, did you save up for down payments for your rentals or did you go hard money loan for any? We were able to save up the 20% down payments, even though, like I said, when I started out, I was only making 36 grand, but we just were super, super frugal. But again, like if I held myself back for so long from starting to invest in real estate because I told myself things like, you need more money, you need more knowledge, you need more experience. And in hindsight, none of those were true. I could have started a lot earlier. It's just that I had these limiting beliefs. And if I knew then what I know now, I really could have started a lot sooner. If you find a deal, finding a deal is the hardest part. If you can find a good deal, the money will come. So you have to network, you have to know people, but like somebody is going to want to partner with you on that if it's a good deal, because they'll see the value and they'll say, I want in on this. Let me give you the money and you do all of the work. So you can find a silent partner, you can find a hard money loan, you can do house hacking, you can do the BRRRR strategy. There's so many things you can do to get started without needing to have a ton of money. Best ways to add value while you are still learning and scaling. Best introvert networking tips. I love that phrase, Sarah, because I feel like I'm an introvert networker. So I totally relate. I would say, I think a lot of people feel like they can't add value to others that are like ahead of them because they feel like, how could I possibly bring value to them? They know so much more than me. But and here's just from my personal experience. I get like a lot of Instagram messages and people asking me for advice, and I can't always personally respond to all of them because I don't have time. But the people who message me on Instagram and they're like, hey, I just read your book. It's so awesome. Here, I just left a 5-star review. Here's a picture of the review. And they share my book on their story. And then they like and comment on my posts. I'm like, wow, like that's really valuable to me. And I will reshare the stuff on my story. And I'm much more apt to respond to those people and help them out than someone who kind of messages me kind of expecting my time or my advice for free. So you absolutely can add value to people. Look at what they're doing online. Can you comment? Can you share their stuff? Can you leave a review on one of their products? Can you promote them in some way? You absolutely can do that, and you can get on their radar. And if you do that enough, you can build a relationship out of it. Well, they will naturally kind of want to help and mentor you. So that is what I would recommend for that. Great question. What tips do you have for rent by the bedroom with analyzing one to purchasing and managing them? That's a good question. I think the best thing to do is always market research. So, because the answer to this is going to vary depending on where you're located. So what I would do first is look up to see if there's other rent by the bedroom or boarding houses in your location. And I don't know if this is like kosher, but I would honestly act like I was an interested tenant and go see it. So I would be like, hey, can I rent out your bedroom? And I would go see it just to do kind of market research or call them up and ask them questions like, hey, who pays for this? Who pays for Wi-Fi? Who pays for utilities? How much is the bedroom? What all is included? And that way you can see what's already out there. I will say that the way we run ours in Louisville, Kentucky, we run them in a nice way. I think when a lot of people hear about boarding houses, they associate that with like slumlords, or it's in a crappy part of town, or it's like a motel. That's not at all how our rental houses are. We require 12-week minimum leases. So people have to stay there for at least 3 months from the get-go. It's not like they're renting it for a night or two at a time. And we provide beds, mattresses, dressers, chairs, lamps, TVs. We pay for all the utilities and the Wi-Fi. So the whole premise of this business model is it's for people who want to like easily have a place to live where it's no hassle. Everything's already furnished for them. They can just take their belongings and move in the day of if they want to. That's how ours is set up. I don't know how other people run their boarding houses, but I can't tell you how many times tenants at our boarding houses in Kentucky would be like, this is the nicest boarding house I've ever seen. And a lot of our tenants have stayed there for 2 years or longer. So I would just start by seeing what are the other options in your location and how can you offer something better for the same cost, or how can you offer something better for a slightly higher cost? And I think there will be the demand there. Absolutely. Let's see. Ben will be at FinCon. Yay. I will see you there. Okay. Abby said, how did you get over the self-doubt that came with writing your book? I'm really glad you asked, Abby, because this was a very scary time for me. like I said, writing something and putting it out there for the public to see and judge is a very scary thing. So when I first started writing Money Honey, I was excited. The words came pouring out of me. And then, like I said, 4 months in, I quit writing the book completely because I basically was like, you're a young woman. Who's going to listen to you? Who do you think you are? And I was just trash talking myself, unfortunately. There was a couple of things that helped me get out of that and pick it back up. And one of them is that I sat down and I had lunch with a good friend, and I told
Up to
her
you.
my book idea, and she looked at me and she said, Rachel, you have to finish what you set out to do. I can tell you're really onto something here. And I was like, really? And she was like, yes, absolutely. So one of the things I recommend, Abby, is just make sure you're surrounding yourself with people who are going to lift you up and encourage you. Because I promise you guys, as you pursue whatever you're pursuing, whether it's writing a book, investing in real estate, starting a business, haters will come out of the woodwork, and they'll put like crazy thoughts and doubt in your head, and they'll be like, why are you doing that? That's crazy. A lot of it will just come from yourself, though. You'll question yourself and you'll tell yourself those things. So you need to have somebody who can give you a reality check and can say, and can support you and can say, no, you're not crazy. You need to do this. Like, I see the value in this. You have to do this. So that's a huge thing, is just surrounding yourself with the right people. And also, another thing I would say is, what does success look like for you? Because if success in writing a book is dependent on the opinions of others or how many books you sell, like that's how I approached it at first. It wasn't about money. It was just that I wanted people to like the book. I wanted the book to do well. And I realized, well, why am I writing the book? Is it because I want to write something that's valuable and that's helpful and I just want to have the courage to do it? Or is it because I want others to, I'm a people pleaser and I want others to approve of what I'm doing? So it's like, are you internally or externally motivated? I think if you're motivated for the right reasons, you will have a lot better time overcoming the self-doubt, if that makes sense. So that's what I would say. Great question. Abigail said, I remember in your podcast, you said you renovated a duplex into a 12 unit. How did you do that? Yes, this duplex was for sale on the MLS. And I had set up a search for myself because I was a realtor. And immediately when it came up, I think I was literally at work at the time, and it was like 11 a.m. in the morning. It came into my inbox. I saw the square feet and the price, and I called the list agent immediately. I was like, can I go down there and look at the property right now? And I left work and I went down at the property. I was the first one there. I think it had just been listed and I was there within 30 minutes, which again is another huge benefit of having a real estate license. And I basically made a verbal offer on the spot for full price because I recognized how great of a deal it was. And I knew that it was going to get multiple offers. So I was like, I'm going to make a full price offer. It's the only time I've ever made a full price offer, but I knew it was meant to be. And the thing is, we'd already had 2 boarding houses by then. So when I saw this duplex, this is the biggest duplex I've ever seen. It's like 3,500 square feet or something. And it had an entire attic that was unfinished, but like a full size attic. Just the structure of the duplex stood out to me because I was like, this could so easily be divided, these larger spaces, into smaller bedrooms. So it was kind of just this intuitive thing where I was like, this is going to work perfectly. Finding a contractor is a whole nother story because that can be very, very difficult. I would say for finding a contractor, you definitely want to get at least 3 to 5 quotes. So like never go with the first contractor that comes out and quotes the work. Get 3 to 5 quotes, like do that during the inspection period. So I didn't wait to get a quote before putting it under contract because I recognized how good of a deal it was. But the first thing I did when I had it under contract is I scheduled all these different contractors to come out and take a look and give me an estimate. And then I went with the one that I felt was going to be the best fit. Again, don't be motivated by cost here, because oftentimes the cheapest contractor is the worst contractor. Not all the time, but a lot of the times they're cheap because they're doing a crappy job. So at the end of the day, you probably want to spend more money on somebody who's really qualified, has a lot of testimonials, has a lot of experience, licensed, bonded, insured, knows what they're doing. But that's basically how we got that process started. Okay, and I see where you guys are all from. Canada, Cali, Rhode Island, Denver. Who's from Denver? Taylor? Cool. I was just in Colorado Springs. Okay, what are your thoughts of hiring experienced freelancer to write your book? Damon, that's a great question. I I think that if you don't feel you have strong writing skills, absolutely hire a freelancer. And they're normally called ghostwriters. So this is where you hire somebody, you hire a ghostwriter, you have the book idea, and you work with them, and they learn kind of your voice, your style, and they're able to write a whole book for you with your name on it. And they're normally, you never know if somebody has a ghostwriter or not. It's not like a advertised thing, but it's a really great solution for somebody who maybe feels like, I'm not a strong writer, or I don't want to write, or I don't have the time to write. Somebody who's really good, and I'm not sure which genre she does, but I'll put her name in the chat. And I think that her website is just alicesullivan.com, but she's a great ghostwriter. I can make other recommendations if you guys want. Joyce said good debt versus bad debt is a thing. And if there's a question there, let me know. But I do think, yes. Good. Oh, you were probably responding to when I was talking earlier about being $1 million in debt. But yes, good debt is, in my opinion, the way I define it is when you can use leverage to purchase a cash flowing asset. So in my opinion, taking out debt to purchase rental property is almost always a good thing. Whereas consumer debt, in my opinion, is bad debt, because normally you're not even purchasing an asset, let alone an appreciated asset or a cash flowing asset. So that almost always hurts you financially. What is your strategy for building your personal brand? Here's my strategy is that I envision my best friend, Megan, and I create content for her. So that's my strategy. And I've always wanted to create content in a way that makes it easy for women and young people to like laugh with, and it's engaging and it's just easy to understand. So I envision that I'm speaking to my best friend, and that's who I'm like writing all of my content for. Like I literally remember thinking of that for Money Honey when I was writing the book. I think the mistake people make is that they try to please everybody, and they're like, well, I don't want to turn off this segment of people or this segment of people. Don't be afraid to turn off a segment of people. When I was thinking of the subtitle for Money Honey, which I ended up going with a simple 7-step guide for getting your financial shit together. Okay, so it's sassy, it's fun. I remember putting that out there and asking for feedback. And there were some people who were like, don't put shit in your subtitle. Like it's crude, it's unclassy, it's a turnoff. And I was like, man, really? Because I thought like, I just love that part. Then I looked at all those people and I realized that they were all like older baby boomers. And I was like, oh, well, I'm not speaking to them. And I'm speaking to female millennials. That's who I want to talk to. And all of the female millennials were like, I love the cuss word in the subtitle. Like, this makes me feel like it's going to be a fun read. So I think part of building your personal brand is knowing who you are and how you can relate to your target audience, and just being like really specific with that. And when you figure that out, it'll really resonate with people. What would you recommend for generating sales with a course? I only launched my course when I already had a platform built. And I think it's harder, like it's easy to sell a $15 book because the customer doesn't necessarily need to know you or have trust with you to purchase a $15 book. They can read the description, they can look at the cover, they can read the reviews, and it doesn't feel like a huge risk to buy a $15 book. However, when you start selling a $300 or $400 or $500 course, people might be a little bit more hesitant, and there needs to be a little bit more trust in the relationship. So it's hard to cold sell something like a course. What I would say to do is to focus on building your email list. If ultimately you want to sell more books or sell a course, you have to build an email list and you have to sell to your email list, because that's how you cultivate a relationship with people over time. So think of some type of free item you can offer where people would exchange their email address for it. So for mine, I have 2. I have my free budgeting worksheets, which are included in my book. People can sign up to download those and I get their email address. And then I have my free passive income starter kit for my other book. And I drop these links all over the place. They're in my email signature. They're in my link tree, in my Instagram, my TikTok, everywhere. So I'm constantly trying to get people onto my email list, because then I can send them an email every week and show them who I am, add value to them, entertain them with the story. They feel like they're getting to know me over time. And we have this relationship where they feel like I'm their friend and they like actually know me. that way, when it's time to launch a course or promote a course, I just say, hey, you guys asked for it. I can tell you're interested in learning how to find off-market deals. I'm launching this boot camp now. Sign up here if you want to. And I've had a lot more success selling my stuff that way rather than just trying to like cold promote online. So great question, Ethan. And thank you for asking. Ben says, maybe I should pause here because I know we only have 5 minutes left. Should I keep going? I'm trying to talk fast so I can get through your questions. Ben's like, please answer. Okay. Dan, were you going to say something?
Just keep going.
Okay. Okay. Ben says, what are your goals with syndication investing? So we have sold 2 of our boarding houses by now. We're about to have the 3rd one under contract to sell. And here's why. I feel like when you first start out in your real estate investing journey, you have more time than money. So you're willing to hustle and do whatever it takes and deal with the annoying tenants and maybe self-manage your properties so that you don't have to pay a property manager. So you're putting all this time into it because you don't have a ton of money. Then at some point, those start to even out and even kind of skew in the other direction, where years from now, when you've built up a rental portfolio, maybe at that point you have a ton of money and way less time. And my husband and I realized we are getting into that area where we're financially independent now. Like, we don't need to have these cash cow properties. We don't need to have like all this money coming in from them necessarily. And it's a pain too to manage them. It's definitely like a lot more hands-on than a traditional rental. So we just decided, once I started learning about syndications, that it's a lot more in alignment with our goals, because our goals are to have true passive income. There's all types of passive income. Some of them are less passive than others. And as we've built more wealth, we've realized we want to get into the more passive investing. Normally that takes more money to do. So now you kind of just follow this journey. And that's why we're selling them and getting into syndications instead, because it's true mailbox money. Once you've done the due diligence and you invested, you get a check in the mail every quarter. You get a quarterly distribution. So that's our goals. That's why we're doing that now. And yes, if you ain't got haters, you ain't popping. That's right. That is very true. I deal with a lot of haters on TikTok. Ben says, what was the editing process? There are 3 people that I recommend you hire if you are serious about self-publishing a book. Number 1 is a good editor, because no matter how good you are at writing, and I consider myself a really good writer, an editor will take your book to the next level. So it's an absolute must. Another one is a cover designer. I made the mistake of initially designing my own cover for Money Honey. I don't think the image is still out there, but it's definitely not as good as the cover is now. So make sure you hire a cover designer. Again, that's another example of me being too cheap and trying to do too many things on my own. And then the third person is the interior formatter, because they take your Word doc and they turn it into like a paperback manuscript, basically. So they format it the way it needs to look so that you can publish it. But in terms of the editing process, normally there's 2 rounds of editing. You'll send it to the editor for like a high level content edit, and they'll say things like, I think the structure needs to be reworked. I think this chapter needs to go here, whatever. So it's high level. Then you fix all those things. And then you send it back to them and they do a copy edit where they're looking at grammar and typos and like really specific things, sentence structure, to make your overall writing stronger. So that's typically how the editing process works. And thank you, Abby. Abby says, such good advice. Thank you. Okay. All right. Wow. I think I actually got through them all. That's amazing. Anybody have questions though that they want to ask me live? Like any last minute questions?
I think Damon, did you have a question? If you want to
Yeah, I did.
Hi,
Can
Damon.
you hear me?
go ahead.
Yes. Hi.
Hi. So I'm a junior in college right now. And 2 weeks ago, I was hired by this real estate company called Gear Realty in my market to do their social media manager and data analytics.
Cool.
And my question for you was, when you were talking about how when you graduated, you had 5 job offers, was that because you had, so 1, you could sell yourself, but 2, you had a lot of internships?
No, I actually didn't have any internships. I think it really was because of my Cutco experience. So that's the only thing that I did during college. I spent all summer selling knives, and then I even sold knives 1 semester during college. But I started out as a sales rep, and then I was an assistant manager, and then I was like a head assistant manager, basically. So there was this clear growth over time. And I even had management and leadership experience and public speaking experience. So in a way, it was kind of like I had the same or better experience than you would get in an internship. And I just think that that helps me stand out a lot.
Well, it's not really an internship. We're calling it an internship because I'm doing all her work.
Yeah.
But so basically, what you were saying, as a ghostwriter, someone who's writing, that's all what I'm doing for her, because she's trying to grow her clients, like more people out of state from California, because she's a realtor.
I wouldn't call it a ghostwriter. Are you doing mostly like social media content management and creation?
I'm writing all her blogs. I'm doing all her YouTube video editing. I'm doing all her data analytics every week. Yeah.
Mostly people use ghostwriter if they're writing a book for somebody else. I mean, you can maybe apply it for like writing blog articles, but I think there's a lot of strong like nouns that you can use on your resume and adjectives. Like you sound like you have an amazing experience. So it's just a matter of like putting that into words on a resume. That sounds really impressive. And it can be done with anything.
Right.
So yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Great job.
All right. Bam. That was like, Rachel, you did a great job. You did talk a little fast, but it was needed. It was like speed round.
Hopefully it wasn't too fast. I just wanted to get to everybody's questions.
No,
okay,
it wasn't. Perfect.
Good.
Perfect amount of questions. We're sitting here at 6 o'clock. Thank you so much, Rachel, for sharing your wisdom. And I know that a lot of the people on this call also appreciate you and are going to blow up your social media with tags and hashtags and all that stuff. We appreciate you very much. We'll let you go. Thank you for your time. And if I don't see you or talk to you before, which I probably will, I feel like, but if not, I'll see you in Austin.
And thank you guys so much for having me. And you guys are like so impressive and so amazing. You have such smart questions. So like, keep me posted on your progress. You can definitely message me on Instagram. That's where I'm the most responsive. So Money Honey Rachel, or on TikTok, I'm Money Honey Rachel. But thank you all so much. And I hope that I hear from you and have a wonderful rest of the day.
And if you like this video and want to see more like it, make sure you give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You should also go check out our website and Instagram, which are both linked below this video. Thanks again for watching. Now go and get your freak on.